Welcome to another episode of Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. I am Bean, and as I was putting out there on social media, FB and stuff, we got our special guest in the house, Mike Hawkins. It's good
What's
to
going on, man?
holler at this good brother again. It's been a while since we been on here, but we had a good conversation last time, so I want to get him on here again, chop it up.
Hey, man, I appreciate you for having me on.
Hey, no problem,
Let's
man.
see what
So
will.
since a lot of people may not know you from back then, from the first time to now. Kind of let them know like where you from originally and stuff.
Originally born and raised in Chicago. Been I moved. I've lived in DC, Indiana. My final. Well, I don't know if it's gonna be my final destination, but I've been down here in Dallas, Texas for the past 6, 7 years. So we'll see how long I stay.
Okay, okay. So Midwest love, man. Chi Town. I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We Midwest
Yep.
uh, area. So we gonna jump right on in, y'all, and talk some different topics like recaps of some of the fights from yesterday, and then
Hmm.
talk about upcoming fights and some predictions, analysis, and stuff like that. Um, But just before I do that, let me go ahead and this is what I'll do because I am going to share this on social media. But I'm gonna go ahead and get a topic and we'll get the ball rolling a little bit. All right. Um, so were you able to see the zone PBC card fight last night with Jose Sanchez versus George Chavez?
Tito Sanchez. Yep.
Yeah, him and George Chavez. It was it was something else, man. That fight was something else. And
Yeah.
I was like, man. So basically, um, it was like 52 seconds left in round 10. And Sanchez hit Chavez with a barrage of punches or whatever. He dropped him.
Yep.
And the ref counted or whatever. Chavez get back up. The last 30 seconds, Sanchez go right back in for the pounce. Pounce in on him. Wop, 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 wop.
Hmm.
It's over. It was over.
Yeah, you
So
gotta
it was a
admire his heart, man.
pretty good card actually. I mean, it was. I
I really like that card.
Yeah, I like the card, and I'm gonna be honest. Like besides like Jaime Munguia and then like Benavides and them and a few other names, I wasn't so privy to some of these guys that were matching up. Like I knew a little bit about Resendez, but from what I can see, Resendez really
Duarte.
he doesn't really like Resendez was cool, but he didn't have the experience to me. He didn't have that many fights. You know what I'm saying?
So,
So it's basically
so
like
yeah,
I felt like the experience would
understandably
be
so.
yeah,
Understandably so. But what I do appreciate, so you can tell Jaime Munguia, he's been in the lab. So I know we watched the last, watched a few of his fights in the past. Um, and I don't know what anybody else has seen, but to me, he kind of just kept he was there to be hit. So in this last fight, it was really good to see him become a more defensive minded fighter. Even Canelo was standing up cheering for the guy. He was showing some good head moves, especially like toward the end of the fight. So yeah, granted, I feel like this fight was more of a fight to showcase, Mungia's skills, considering, some of the setbacks he's had recently. But I feel like it was a good showing, especially for the Cinco de Mayo weekend. So
yeah, yeah. Hey, I couldn't have said it better, man. It definitely was the proper way to set off the weekend, man, because
mhm.
he definitely was stepping on the gas. But he was being still being methodical. He wasn't being careless or overzealous, and you could tell that you could tell that he had the better skill other two and had more experience,
Yep.
but he just didn't get crazy with it. So that's what I like. Sometimes boxers
Yep.
feel like they're gonna have the upper hand. They know they're the favorite to go into the fight, and they start to shift the gears too much, and they do a little too much. And in some
Hmm.
instances, they get caught. They get caught with that shot unexpectedly because they was out there doing the
Yep.
most, not being defensively sound, and just being so gun ho.
Hmm.
And then bam,
Hmm.
something that caught you. And you like, man, you couldn't recover from it. So he was smart. He fought a
Yeah,
smart fight.
you can tell just how many fights he's had. Even still, you can tell it's really only his last five or so that he's gotten the most growth as a fighter. I know in terms of Mexican culture, like it's very important for them to, get as many fights as they can. Whereas, if you're looking at the eastern side of the world, they focus as soon as you go pro, they want to, go for a championship in as few fights as possible. So, it's that interesting dichotomy. Basically, like I said, it was refreshing to see Munguia in his growth, especially in that last fight.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely agree. So right now, I can post this on FB and Twitter as we speak. So if y'all on Facebook, I am posting this link on there now. We are live. And I'm gonna share this to the Twitter feed as well. And for all those that are here, hit that thumbs up as you come in. Hit that thumbs up. Even if you play it back, even if you don't watch it today, you catch it tomorrow or throughout the week. It's really important just to hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. I'm at like 975 subscribers. I'm 25 away from 1,000. I've been grounding this almost 3 years. So all the support that everybody has shown, it means so much. And I can say I'm forever grateful for everybody who's been supportive of what I've been doing with this podcast that I started in 2023. Shout outs to my cousin, Cam J Networks. Um, Shout outs to Rich Talmadge, who's also from Illinois. He used to box himself. Shout outs to Rich Talmadge. He was on my show like 2 or 3 episodes ago. So
Okay.
you might want to catch that, with me and Rich Talmadge. Rich, you said I watched some of the fights. In all honesty, I watched 98% boxing, 2% UFC. Boxing is the beautiful science. When you have two guys giving you a different style fight, makes it interesting. Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. It definitely does make it
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm.
Cam J, you said
It's
best
also why a
full
lot of people
event
have a
of
better
fights.
appreciation for boxing over UFC.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, they showed out, cuz Cam J. You said uh, one of the best main cards of the year last night, PBC and
Oh, absolutely.
GPB. It definitely was a very, very good card, man. To the point where I can go back and watch a little bit more of it later on, just to watch it again over again because it was definitely, definitely a lot of action
Both,
there.
bro.
It was definitely a lot of action there. Okay. Oscar Duarte, um, he ended up winning a split decision over Angel Farrow. Uh, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Fierio, but it was
On
in a light.
Angel Fierro.
Okay, that was in the light heavyweight division. Back and forth action. Round six was really, really good to me. I like that action in round six. They definitely was in there, letting it all hang out.
So when I was watching that fight, so me personally, I thought the fight could have swung to Fierro. I know there were a lot of people that were booing after they announced Duarte as the winner. I personally felt like Fierro did enough to win, but I can also see a case where judges were looking for a little more accuracy. Like for me, I feel like Fierro was far and away the more busier fighter, especially during some of their exchanges. Like Oscar Duarte, you could tell he was trying to sit down on some of his punches, which is fine. But um, then again, I could see a case being made where you could see Oscar Duarte being the more accurate fighter, which if you're a judge, if you're a judge in the pro ranks, you're prioritizing the activity and accuracy. So if we're judging based on those two things, and then also aggression, Oscar Duarte had the more come forward style, which most judges, especially during Cinco de Mayo, they're going to gravitate toward that kind of a fight. So I get it. Me personally, I feel like Fierro, might have swung it his way, but who am I? I'm not a judge.
Right, right. Facts, facts, facts. Um, all right. So got those posted there. All right. So what about the main event, the main course? Um,
Oh my boy.
David Benavides. Oh man, that was crazy. And Zurdo Ramirez.
You know what? If anybody had any doubt about David Benavides, and in my personal opinion, if anybody had any doubt about whether a match between him and Canelo would have seen Canelo as the clear victor, I think his performance last night, while he's no Canelo, I think last night proved that there's a lot more to that fight than a lot of people thought originally. Because a lot of people would think like, oh, if those two fight, Canelo's going to steamroll the guy, and it's like we've never seen David Benavidez steamroll. Even with
No.
Canelo's fight against Bud Crawford, we could see that Bud Crawford he was actually holding his own. Like I know he likes to credit that to his wrestling background. I feel like that's whatever. I get it. I've never been a wrestler, but we can see that Canelo, he can be out muscled, which I think, when he's fighting Benavidez, that's just not going to happen. Um, it's one thing to to dodge just one singular pot shot, but it's another thing to try to dodge an entire flurry like David Benavidez is known for throwing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that performance by him was amazing, and I'm glad he I'm glad he's taken up and assuming the mantle as Mr. Cinco de Mayo. Everybody knew that that was kind of Canelo's crown. And then, depending on how you feel about the situation, David Benavidez has been calling out Canelo for like 50, 11 years at this point, where it seems like Canelo's just not going to answer him. I personally don't think we're going to get that fight, no matter what David Benavidez said at the end, in the post fight interview. But in my personal opinion, I would assume that David Benavidez would edge out that fight. Not in a necessarily clear victory, but in at least a split decision against Canelo.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Well, if I speak on that, just hypothetically speaking, because like we said, we doubt it's gonna ever happen. I just don't see Canelo wanting that smoke necessarily, especially after seeing what he did last night.
He
Uh, I don't
right,
think,
because
and I can
and then
understand.
David right, Benavidez, what was he like 250 plus at some point? So it was like, bro, like, what do you do against that? He came all the way down to fight people, in the weight divisions that he did, and now he just beat a solid 200 pounder who, he at least had a few fights in that division before he faced David Benavidez, and here Benavidez is, just, and it sounds a lot of people say he's jumping up a weight, but he's like, David Benavidez, he's just going up toward whatever his natural weight was anyway. So I feel like, as we've seen, he feels strong at this weight. We see he has no issues with the lack of speed. His hand speed last night was ridiculous, especially for
Yeah,
him. But that's something you can kind of take to the bank. Where if you have somebody who's coming up from the lighter weight classes, they tend to have a lot more speed, whereas they lack power as they move up. We've seen that with Mayweather. We've seen that with Pacquiao. Like the more they moved up, the less that little KO count started to pile up. But David Benavides, for him to jump up that much in weight and to go for a KO, that's pretty much insane. And if you want to liken it to what Bud did, that would be the equivalent. And like I said, I know Ramirez, he's no Canelo. That will be the equivalent of Bud coming up the weight to knock out Canelo. So it was an impressive victory. No matter what people may say about Ramirez, just like a true Mexican, he's got a steady record to back up who he is. So
Absolutely. Hey, Wayne, what's going on, mate? Over there in the UK, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on this live. And as a matter of fact, me and Wayne, we did a live as well. So shout out to Wayne Smout in UK. Um, yeah, man. So definitely David Benavidez. I feel like he's just gonna have to be the type of person, kind of like Boots Ennis, to where when Boots said, "I'm not gonna keep worrying about if I don't get credit from people. I just gotta go out here and do me." And I think David Benavidez is kind of similar like that. Like they're gonna just keep fighting these big names, and you don't give them credit. Oh well, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna just keep
yep.
trying to step up their game
And
and get the accolades and get the belts and get the straps. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna talk about Boots here soon.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Boots in this
Uh,
segment for sure. But yeah, man. But it's just like David Benavidez, like you said, the hand speed, the fact that he was able to go up 25 pounds, and I think he was just under 200 pounds, like 198 or something like that. But
mhm,
the fact he was able to
mhm,
transcend with the power as well and still have power to hurt another cruiserweight goes to show that he's going to be a threat if he fights.
mhm,
Potentially, if we get to fight with him and Ja Apataya. But then you kind of got a sticky web because Ja Apataya is now with Zuffa, and Zuffa, he had to lose that belt, IBF or whatever. So now it's vacant. So it's like,
mhm.
I don't know how that's going to hash out. You know what I mean? The politics of it. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but Ja Apataya said he'll fight him. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa.
He
That would be
did, didn't
crazy.
he? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it will be an interesting matchup. I personally don't know. Well, okay. One thing I'll tell you, all the like everything that David Benavidez does or has done to everybody else, I guarantee he's not going to be able to do that to Jai Opatai. Like Jai Opatai, he's there for a fight. And if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so he's from Australia, right?
Yep. Australia. Yep.
So if it's one thing you know about people from Australia or anywhere near those Samoan Islands, do not mess with those people. So or New Zealand, same thing. Like they
Yeah.
they, they
Yep.
are they're very tough and sturdy people. So David Benavidez, if he fights Jaio Patalia, he needs to plan for a 12-round fight. Like I know he and what honestly, one thing I've always been impressed by with David Benavidez is his stamina. Um, it's the guy's like machine. I don't know if I've seen him take rounds off, but I've never seen David Benavidez get tired actually tired himself out. Um, and for him to be as big as he is, and then like I said, I know he used to carry a lot of extra weight, so maybe that helps his cardio. But his gas tank. I'm not sure. I know Jai Overtime. I know he's going to be game for a fight, but I think that would be more of a battle of attrition than anything else. Like who's going to be the last person to stop throwing punches? And if it goes to that between Jai and David Benavidez, if it goes to the war of attrition, I think I would have it at Benavidez.
And one thing you make a good point because even like with David Benavidez, it's like he's in boxing shape. He's not necessarily a Holyfield or Ken Norton where you see the rips and the six pack,
Hmm.
but because he
Hmm.
doesn't have it, I think is an advantage because he's not carrying all that muscle mass.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think that's
One
a
thing.
credit to how he's able to have that kind of conditioning, late rounds and mid
Yeah.
rounds.
One thing. One thing. A lot of boxing trainers will tell you, like people who, look like Sugar Ray Leonard, even though he was a little more lean. People look like Sugar Ray Leonard, um, Andy Ruiz, David Benavidez. Those are perfect. That's perfect boxing shape for a fighter. Like you're not carrying any extra muscle, so your muscles can carry more oxygen for longer in you. So hey, I get it.
Yeah, man, for sure, man. I'm gonna read a couple more of these comments real quick down here. Let me get back onto the YouTube real quick. Read these comments and make sure, like I said, when you come in, hit that thumbs up. Just all you gotta do, just hit it, just tap it. It'll help the algorithm. All right, so let me scroll back up. Rich Talmadge, you said David Benavides and Usyk would be exciting. David jumped up and made it look easy. I would love to see David fight a high volume puncher like himself. I believe David wins the belt. Then if Usyk still there, I might get my wish. I mean, it could. I mean, it's one of the fights that could be interesting, but Usyk to me is just he's phenomenal. We've seen what he does against these big guys. We saw what he did when he was a cruiserweight. You know, at his natural smaller weight, he was just like
Mhm.
just as fast then, and now he's running circles around the big guys. David Benavidez is very nice. He has the hand speed, but I think the footwork of Usyk kind of gives him problems. They both got hand speed, but I think David doesn't have the educated feet that Usyk has. That lateral movement that he would be a couple steps ahead of him in that regard.
I agree.
So David would have to come off the ring, and that's going to exert a lot of energy trying to get Usyk and come off the ring and get him to where you can kind of line him up and get them shots off because he's always slippery. He's very slippery. He's very smart. Malik Scott called him. He referred to Usyk as the black belt of boxing. The
The what?
black belt of boxing.
I don't even know what that means.
That's
What
what
does
he
that
called
mean?
Usyk. I guess he's saying Usyk is like a master at what he does,
Oh, yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah.
his style in the boxing ring. He's like a black belt.
Yeah, that's that Soviet style when employed correctly is very hard to deal with. It relies on basically getting it. Same thing Devo does. Same thing Lomachenko did when he was still an active fighter. Get in, get your work in, get out, move off to the side, get out the way, rinse and repeat. That's very hard to deal with, especially once you first get into an exchange. Naturally the other fighter is going to want to throw something back, but if Usyk has already gone out the way as soon as your 15 punch combo is going to get fired off from David Benavides, it's going to be really frustrating for that David Benavides, and we have seen David Benavidez get frustrated with the a fighter having like a lack of one to engage. Those are things you just kind of chalk up as a more active fighter. Like, hey, some people are going to employ that defensive tactic against you, but with Usyk, he has the ability to have a perfect balance between using his footwork as his defense and then using that to create space and angles to get off his counter shots, which he's very good at. I would hate to see my boy David Benavidez get counted all night, but that's exactly what I would think would happen.
For sure. Yeah, man. Um, let's see. Read this other comment. Camp J, Cuzzo, you said Ja is hiding over there at Zuffa. He shouldn't have never signed with Zuffa. Lost his strap. He has no leverage, and it isn't a sure thing Zuffa will come to the table and negotiate that fight with David Benavidez. I mean, that is true now. He did kind of put himself in a situation where it's like, hey, they see the money signs, they like, man, 2 or 3 fight deal. We seen Regis Prograde do a fight deal and kind of been we gonna get that quick money, but then just that fast, look at the realities of it. Like, man, I'm getting paid good. But look what I gotta sacrifice. I gotta give up my IBF. I gotta give up my whatever you got, WBO, whatever. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
comes with a price, man. If you go over Zupa,
You make a deal.
it definitely comes with a price.
Make a deal with the devil. You got to come with the consequences.
Yeah, man. Cam J, you said Usyk versus DB, the fantasy fight, won't never happen because Usyk is on his way out. Yeah, I don't see it happening either, man. Definitely a fantasy fight.
Facts. Mhm.
Definitely agree there, cuz oh.
I
All
think
right,
I
let me
think it
see.
would kind of be along the same reasons why Usyk just wouldn't fight Jai. What was it, Jai Opataya? Who they were talking about? He was like, I don't want to break this guy. So no, I think it would be for the exact same reasons.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right, man. We just getting rolling here. We ain't been on here too long, so we got a little more to talk about. Um, okay, recap. Nayo Inoue advances to 33 wins, no losses, no draws over Southpaw stance fighter Junto Nakatani, whose record now stands at 32 1-0. Of course, for those who don't really follow boxing like me and you, to those who are like casuals, basically the significance of this is they both are from Japan, so this was a huge thing for the culture over there. They both came in over the weekend with no losses, so they both were putting their all on the line. Anyway, has the IBF, WBC, and WBO belts. So what do you feel about that fight, man? Because to me, it started really getting good mid rounds and started picking up. Started off kind of slow, like a
So
chess match.
to piggyback off the first thing you said, like yeah, for anybody who doesn't follow boxing, Junto Nakatani versus Naoya Inoue, and that was the equivalent of our Hagler Hearns. So um, so in the very okay, I got a lot of thoughts on this. So first off, it was a good job to the both of them. I feel like they both established their game plan as best as they could. Me personally, I feel like Inoue was able to get off the cleaner work. Um, some of his counters are a little bit sharper. He set some traps on Junto Nakatani that Junto Nakatani he seemed to just kind of be a sucker for at times. But like to your point, during the mid to the late rounds, that's when your boy Junto Nakatani started coming on. Like he started catching Inoue with some really good shots, like especially around the ninth and 10th round. And these were shots where it was like, man, like it's good Inoue moved his head out the way at the very last second because Nakatani he was coming over with that overhand right, a little too close for my comfort sometimes. But like to that point one of Nakatani's best weapons, which is the straight out of the southpaw stance. He was able to get some good work in, especially once he kind of understood Inoue's timing. One thing Nakatani is always good at is kind of probing his jab out, and then once the other fighter kind of starts picking up his rhythm, he throws off his rhythm and hits you with a straight right or straight left, sorry, out of the southpaw stance. So anyway, he did really good with avoiding that. So, but during the beginning to mid rounds, I would have given to Inoue for the majority of them. But during the late rounds, you can tell there was just their Japanese spirit taking over, and they just wanted to fight. So they gave the entire boxing world a really good fight, in my personal opinion.
Absolutely, man. And I think I have to agree with my cousin Cam J. This is something we had discussed in his boxing chat on FB. And shout out to Cam J again. I do agree. I think Nakatani was showed too much respect. You know what I'm saying? He showed too much respect for NUA. And a lot of
Mhm.
times when you do that, you're gonna come up short. You know, you're going in there,
Yep.
you gotta let it all hang out sometimes. You in there, you both know you got no losses. So by all means, you trying to protect that old, you trying to make sure you don't take this L. So you can't have too much respect for that guy.
hmm
It's a
The,
it's a
the
thin
the only
line.
thing that worked in
Yeah.
The only thing that worked against Nakatani was that the fight didn't last 20 rounds because, like you mentioned, toward the end of the fight, you could tell he just stopped respecting it anyway. He kind of stopped respecting his power. He stopped respecting his footwork. He stopped respecting his tenacity. And then you saw Nakatani kind of turn it into another gear where it was like, okay, so wait a minute. I wonder what would happen if this fight was 15 rounds. You know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. And guys that little like them, they probably could do a 15 rounds. You know what I'm saying? Them guys like that in shape like they are.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Let me read some more of these chats here. Uh, Scrolling back up. Um, Cam J, you said Usyk need to fight Kabiel, and that is real talk. He does. He does. He needs to fight Kabiel after this little fight with Usyk and that kickboxer, Verhoeven or whatever. He needs to go ahead and fight Ajit Kabiel, the other guy with the belt. You know what I'm saying? And go ahead and maybe go ahead and if he can hold it down and
Wardley.
beat Kabiel, you can say you done beat everybody. Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and bow out. You know what I'm saying? Retire on that note.
Worley might have something to say about it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about them too. I'm happy you said that. We're gonna talk about Warley. Man, we got a lot to talk about here. Um, Wayne Smout, you said only way Ja Apataya versus Benavides happens if Turkey pays it on the Ring Magazine show. What's good, Mike? What's going on? Wayne, you said Inoue versus Nakatani's skill level was amazing. It was, man. It showed a lot of skill um, that they brought to the table, especially the first couple rounds. They were definitely playing chess
Hmm.
in the early rounds. You
Hmm.
know, it were situations that once it starts to get deeper and deeper, you knew like, okay, one of these guys is going to have to make some separation between him and the other guy. And anyway, started to find that rhythm and set his little
Yep.
pace and stuff. That's the main thing that Nakatani, if they do fight again, you have to see like, okay, you can't let that man get in his rhythm like that. Once he anyway starts to go, he's dangerous.
I would love to see a rematch. I don't know about anybody else, but I think that fight deserves a rematch. I personally want to see Nakatani do more. I want them to basically treat it like round 13. Let's go. Like you pick up where we left off. You know.
Yeah, man. Yep, yep. I'm gonna read this last chat, and then we'll jump into another subject. So, Wayne Smout, you said nobody beats Usyk on another level to the rest of the heavyweights. I mean, he definitely seems to be. Um, he fought punchers. He fought AJ and Dubois, two heavy hitters that we've seen him
Mhm.
knock out a lot of guys, and he's withstood their punches. Fury, a guy with a lot of skill and big for his size, awkward, and all that. And he beat Fury too. So Usyk is definitely a rare breed. He's definitely very special. He's
Mhm.
very special for sure.
Mhm.
Um, all right, so since we talked about Boots a second ago, I'm gonna go ahead and jump on one in. Boots Ennis versus Xander Zayas. What do you feel about that one, man? I like this.
Um, Let me preface this by saying, number one, I think it's going to be a good fight. But do I know who's going to definitively win? I think so. Um, I think Boots takes it in a unanimous decision, just based on skill level alone. But Xander Zayas, he's not a pushover. Um, I really just went into this fight like I just want to see a good fight. I didn't even really create any bets on this just for myself. But if it's one thing we know about Boots Ennis, everybody's kind of liking him to the Bud Crawford archetype, which is switch hitting style, able to adjust defensively on the fly, where Boots Ennis does versus where Bud Crawford, where they alternate is Bootsy carries the hands down defense, which I hate with a passion. I feel Bud Crawford was a little more defensively responsible. And knock on wood, I've always said like one of these days that little hands down shit is gonna get Boots Ennis in trouble. I hope it doesn't, but
Right.
um, he does employ his defense very well. There are times where, like as I said, the hands down style has gotten him caught a couple of times, not really clipped or hurt or anything, but sometimes he's gotten hit hard enough to back him up. So I just hope he doesn't do that. And one thing I want Enos to do is just learn how to, one, yes, at least respect whoever's across from you, um, defensively, but also just making sure you're being careful not to get too overconfident. You don't want to get clipped. We've seen it happen time and time again, where I think people who gotten too confident, that's ended up costing them. So for me, I just really want to see a good fight. I really didn't have too many strong opinions about it, but Boots Ennis, that is my guy. I love his style. I love his shot selection. I love how him and if I can take a breakaway for a quick second, I can appreciate how nowadays in the modern boxing era, people have come back to the body shot. We see that with Shakur, Bud, Boots. We were just talking about somebody else on here, but David Benavides. There are people who are finally starting to reprioritize the body shot. I mean, I have no idea why it went away. It's like it's really the only shot where you don't even have to hit him that hard, but if it's right on the money, and also if you're hitting heavyweights, you got to do it a little harder because you got to get through that layer of fat. But that's the one shot that'll crumple anybody. That's the only. There's people I know. They say like, I'll take a knockout shot versus a liver shot because you're going to be feeling that liver shot for the next 2 or 3 months at times, depending on how hard it is. But for Boots Ennis, I like how he utilizes a lot of body work. You'll see him use a lot of uppercuts to the body, which I mean, hey, if it works, it works. His opponents seem to get hit with it all the time, so he's got a good right hook to the body as well, coming out of southpaw stance. So, but yeah, Boots Ennis, he has a lot of tools that he can just play around with in his fight for size. But like I said, as long as he doesn't get overconfident and careless, I feel like he should come away with the UD.
Yeah, man. I can see that, man. I could definitely see Boots Ennis winning UD. I could see a potential late stoppage, maybe, just maybe.
Okay.
Because
Uh,
Boots is special, man, and I think that he likes to get the stoppage. Certain fighters would rather get a stoppage and not leave it in the hands of the judges. That's one thing I appreciate about
mhm,
Keyshawn Davis. It's like he wants to get the stoppage. He talks about that all the time. Like he's saying it before the rematch with Nahir Albright. Hey, I want to get a stoppage this time. I want to stop this man. So he's like
gotcha.
he's trying to speak it into existence, like he did with Jermaine Ortiz. Stopped him with a body shot.
Mhm,
And like you said, those body shots. That's an example. Keyshawn Davis, body shot puncher. Um,
mhm,
Even as a heavyweight, like AJ goes to the body pretty good. He kind of will go to the body. Daniel Dubois, he will go to the body. So, and that's what you need. I
Tyson,
think
as
that
tall
would be
as
the
he
key.
is, he goes to the
Yep,
body.
go to the body. Yep. So it's definitely something that boxers need to exercise more is go to the body because those body shots can be just as crucial
Hmm.
as a chin or right here the jawline shots.
Yep.
So yeah, man, that's definitely what's up. So yeah, man, um, I'm very intrigued with that fight. Let me read these chats as we move along. Uh, KMJ, you said another big week of boxing coming up. The next week, um, May 9th and 10th, Worley Dubois, IBF 126 title fight, Angelo Leo versus Aline. Saturday night in Zuffa, card Sunday. with Boachuk versus Shane Mosley Jr. Um, Xander versus Boots, June 27th. David Morrell versus Zach Shilly, the co-main to Woodley Dubois versus, sorry, Dubois next Saturday, May 9th. Yeah. So I know David Morrell seemed like he was supposed to fight somebody else. So this guy that is his replacement you just named, I'm not privy to him. But after this show, best believe I'm gonna jump on YouTube and be looking him up. So I'm gonna definitely check out this Zach guy, see what kind of fighting style he has, and some of the names on his resume. If anybody sticks out, to see what he's gonna have for David Morrell. Um, but yeah, since you mentioned that, and that's something we want to talk about, Dubois and Wardley, because I just saw their trailer earlier today. I'm really looking forward to this because we just know two heavy hitters, both with a 95% knockout ratio. They call it don't blink because they know, literally, you
Mhm.
step away to go to the restroom for a second, you run in the kitchen, grab something out the fridge, just that fast you come back and it's over. So what do you think about that, man? Dubois versus Wardley. Fabio Wardley.
So, so me personally, I'm really looking forward to this fight. We have Dubois. One of his recent claims to fame was knocking out Anthony Joshua, putting another loss on Joshua's record. In Worley, he recently stopped. I'm drawing a blank on his name. What's his name?
Joseph Parker.
Joseph Parker. Yep. So he recently stopped Joseph Parker. So, which Joseph Parker, he was on a bit of a tear for a little while now. He was
Yeah.
able to get Deontay Wilder out of there. Get a couple big wins under his name. But yeah, for me personally, I'm really looking forward to this one. One of the things about Wardley that I like, even though I think it might be a little too much to his detriment, he has a tendency to allow his opponents to get off a little too much. Um, you saw in one of his last few fights, he got rocked toward the later rounds, and then he came back for a stoppage. But I feel like he's also someone that has a defensive liability. And I feel that if he's not careful, and Dubois catches him, we've seen Dubois has one shot knockout power. So, whereas Wardley, he's for me in terms like he's not really necessarily a knockout puncher per se. He's more of like a knockout by volume kind of puncher. Even though he does have very good counter punching skills, which I'm always appreciative of the counter puncher. Dubois he seems to be more of a puncher, power puncher. So like I said, I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm looking forward to seeing I'm looking forward to seeing Dubois. I really want to see Dubois start to, really get into his boxing bag. Like for the past few fights, like I mentioned, I forgot who it was we were talking about. But for the past few fights, I really haven't seen too much change coming from Dubois. He seems like the exact same fighter as when he fought Joshua, which that can be to his detriment. As a fighter, you're always supposed to be improving and getting better. I just hope he has learned from some of his past mistakes. I hope he can, at least try to cut the ring off of Warley. But one thing I'm concerned for Dubois is this lack of head movement, which we know Wardley is going to pick that apart all day. Wardley seems like he's the quicker of the two boxers. He seems like he's one of the more quicker heavyweights. So I think I think I think Wardley's speed, if it goes to the full 12 rounds, is going to make the. I think his speed is going to be the difference maker. It might cost him to an easy decision, but if it doesn't, I'm pretty sure it's going to be because Dubois caught
Mm, okay. Okay. Yeah, man, that's definitely a fight, man, that kind of like I can juggle with to say, I lean towards Wardley, but then at the same time, but at the same time, the ball is a heavy hitter at any second, so it's kind of like I'm kind of teetering with this situation, like 1 second, like today I might say something right now, and then the next time I'm up on here, I might say something different. because this is definitely next weekend, and it's going to be one of the fights where you just don't know. I think it's going to come down. A big part of it will come down to the resilience. Whoever's going to show the more resilience, like when the time gets rough, if the current gets strong, you know what I'm saying? Can you sink or swim right now? You know what I mean? Um,
Yep.
so I think it's gonna be some of that probably in the first few rounds. I think we get like round 3, round 4. It'll be like, you know what I'm saying? Somebody gonna get hurt. So the first person who gets hurt, can he bounce back and recover, or you know what I'm saying? Or is that gonna be a wrap? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Now, and also one thing we've seen in terms of Wardley versus Dubois, you've seen Wardley. He is a fighter. You know, when he was fighting Joseph Parker, you know, we saw that there was a point in time where like Joseph Parker was about to knock out Wardley, but you know, Wardley, I don't know where he summoned it from, but you know, he had to come back and stake his claim, and then he went for the stoppage against Joseph Parker. So if there's one thing we know about Wardley, he's there for a fight. Now with Dubois, I know a lot of people have criticized him in the past when he's lost to Usyk a couple of times. You know, he lost to a stiff jab for the first one. And I forgot how he lost the second one, but a lot of people were basically just questioning his heart after that. So, like I said, if there's one thing we know about Wardley, he will come to fight. Now, Dubois, he'll only fight as long as his heart allows.
yeah, man. I just hope it is a situation that I mean, that's what it seems. The pattern that we've seen, but I'm hoping that that's not what we see on this next weekend. I'm hoping that if it's a situation where he has to pick himself up off the canvas, that he has that Rocky moment
Hmm.
and he gets up and Dubois,
Yep.
should he go down, get back up and show like, okay, like Andrew Ruiz did to AJ, you know what I mean? When he went down in the first fight,
Hmm.
got up and went in the trenches with him. So I hope we see
Yep.
that side of Dubois. That way he can kind of have people put respect on his name again.
Yep.
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Put respect
Yep.
on Triple D.
Hmm.
Yeah, man, that's what's up, man. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So let me know y'all predictions for Wardley versus Dubois in the chat. Let us know your predictions as well, and also your prediction for Boots versus Xander Zayas. Please drop those in the chat um, down here. Um, let me get back to my thing here. All right, so the last performance of Tyson Fury when he fought heavyweight Arslanbek Makhmadov, the big Russian dude that looks intimidating or whatever. What'd you feel about that last performance of Tyson Fury?
Um, I feel so about that performance. I feel just about as much as I did for the Jaime Munguia fight last night, where that was a really good fight for fans to basically see like Tyson Fury is still a huge player in the heavyweight division. While I personally feel that Makhmudov was kind of there to be hit. I mean, if we're keeping it real, it seems like his bark was worse than his bite at times. Now there were times where he was able to catch Tyson Fury with a few good shots, but as we've all known, if Deontay did it and he got back up, like I don't think you're gonna be able to rely, to reliably rely on that. Like I said, I feel like Mahmoudov, he got a couple of good shots in, but Tyson Fury, it was like another day in the gym. He was getting all of his shots off. He was sneaking in uppercuts when they were tied up. And toward the final rounds, you saw that Makhmudov, he was just trying to buy time by just kind of hugging it and falling all over it to a knee to get an extra 5 seconds. But I feel like he was just cannon fodder for Tyson Fury. No shade to Makhmudov, but like he was just cannon fodder. Too slow, too big,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not strong enough. Bark worse than his bite.
Right, right. Yeah, it pretty much played out the way I thought it would as well. Excuse me. I definitely saw Tyson winning a decision and fairly easily, like a sparring session. Because
Hmm.
Makhmadov, he just he's a big guy and he got strength,
It was
but the strength
it was
is
one
not
round away
necessarily
from a
power.
shutout.
Yep. Pretty much getting shut out, man. His punch placement is terrible. He just wings and punches like that. I mean, so he's
Hmm.
very predictable and perfect for a person who
Hmm.
can move like that and counterpunch like Fury. So,
Yep.
so speaking of them, the fight that we're that's supposed to be locked in, but they don't have a venue yet. They don't have all that. Is Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Um, so should we get that at the end of this year? What they're shooting for? How do you think that's gonna play out? If we get the AJ versus Fury, man.
Well, so after Tyson Fury won his match against Mahmoudov, of course, he did the AJ call out, which, obviously I feel like it has a little hint of that Mayweather Pacquiao in it, where it's like, I mean, great if y'all fought 5 years ago. But as we've all known, this kind of been well documented at this point. That's been more so Tyson Fury's fault than it has AJ's. I remember AJ, he was calling him out before he started developing gray hairs on his beard. And I personally can I know AJ is kind of said some wild things, especially like after his loss to Usyk, but I can kind of feel for AJ when he said he sat there while he was being called. He was like, "Look, dude, I've been calling you out for years. Like, if it happens, I'll let you know." I appreciate that kind of energy that AJ gave it because it's like, dude, like, where were you back when we were both in our primes? Like, you're just playing around. But that being said, I feel like if the fight does happen, I really don't know what would happen. I would love to say just out of spite to Tyson Fury and just all the games he's ran over the past few years with multiple people. I would love for AJ to go for a stoppage, but as we all know, Tyson Fury, he's a very slippery character. Um, I also feel Tyson Fury, and it also seems like Tyson Fury really hasn't slowed down. I mean, I know just with the age, the average fighter loses a step or two. And for sure, Tyson Fury doesn't fight like he used to when he was younger. But in terms of just becoming a smarter fighter as you get older, he still has all of his wits about him. We've seen him knocked upside the head, but we've never seen him knocked out. We've always seen him have amazing powers of recovery. So if a boxer had a concussion clock, this guy's still sitting at 0 hours. So
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I don't know who would win. I would want AJ to win just out of spite the Fury. But I could easily see that probably going to, I don't know, a majority draw.
Okay, okay. So if y'all have a prediction for AJ versus Fury, should we get that at the end of this year, what they call the fourth quarter of this year? Uh, just
Was
put
it
your,
September or something like that?
I think it said like October, November. That's what Frank Warren was saying. Now,
Gotcha.
I'm a AJ fan, so I'm gonna put my bias aside and the fact that I'm a fan aside, and just kind of like be real with it when I address it. I agree with a lot of what you just said too, as far as the mind games, Fury playing game. But she'll get this fight this year. I always felt AJ beats him stylistic wise. I feel like Tyson Fury struggles. Um, well, we saw with Usyk. Usyk was just a fighter who's there's only one Usyk. You're not gonna see another Usyk. So Usyk pretty much can do all that Fury could do, just a step faster. You know, he was a naturally smaller guy from cruiserweight, so he could get those combos off. He can get in and out, zip in and out, and do all that stuff, and kind of frustrates anybody. But I think with Tyson, if you look at the style of fighters he's mostly fought, we have to keep in mind he's pretty much bigger than everybody he fights. Tyson Fury is bigger weight wise, uh, reach wise, height wise, all that. But where we saw him kind of have little problems with stuff like Francis Ngannou, guys that were strong foundation where he couldn't do like the Deontay Wilder. You can't just walk me down like Wilder. You can't just put me on my back foot because he couldn't do that. He couldn't get that
Mm-hmm.
off with Francis Ngannou. I think AJ has that type of build to where he's not going to want to risk it and roll the dice like he did with Wilder because he knows not only could I roll the dice a little bit with Wilder because he has a right hand which is dangerous, but AJ has a left and a right. AJ has an uppercut and a hook. He has so many more tools in his bag that it would be a lot more dangerous for Fury to try to employ a crunk style fighting. I think he's going to be more or less like he did when he fought Klitschko back in the day, or kind of like he did with this
Mm-hmm.
Arlan Magmadov, kind of like box and move a little bit. I don't think he's going to go into a firefight with AJ. I don't think it would be good for him.
I wholeheartedly agree. I even, and just to pivot just slightly, I remember when there were talks about an AJ versus Wilder fight some years ago. A lot of people were, just completely siding with Wilder, saying that, oh, AJ, you can't take a punch, you can't do this, or they're saying, well, Wilder's got a right hand, and I'm like, okay, so far we've seen AJ have stopping power in a right hook, and an uppercut, a left hook. It's like, in terms of tools wise, um, I would hope if AJ and Wilder ever fight in a fantasy fight, I would hope AJ stays out the way of Wilder's right hand. But I feel at this point, it's kind of like the NFL. As soon as one team wins the Super Bowl, all the other teams are gunning for you at that point. So everybody's come up with a strategy and a game plan for you. So with Wilder, which like I always said, he needs to evolve. And sure enough, because he didn't, now everybody's figured him out. When's the last time he had a right hand knockout? I don't even remember when.
You said, now who was that? The right hand?
When's the last time Wilder got a knockout with a right hand?
Oh, actual knockout. Let me look at his, what's the name real quick? His box rec. Because I
So, but
know,
saying all that to say,
mm,
be- well, saying all that to say, because we have to look it up, it's like, so people have figured out your right hand, and then also on top of that, in Wilder's last fight, he broke his right hand, so he couldn't throw it. He couldn't rely on it anymore. And I said that's what happens when you only rely on one punch. But going back to AJ, um, yeah. So to your point, AJ has a lot of tools he could use to beat Tyson Fury. Me personally, I'm kind of with you. I always felt that if anybody can beat Tyson Fury, and this is before Tyson Fury fought Usyk, if anybody can beat Fury, it's AJ. Just stylistic, to your point, AJ doesn't allow anybody to bully him. We've seen AJ elevate his game, and we've seen him change up his game, even though he's got several losses. Which, if I can take a slight break on that, um, when it comes to the heavyweight division, a few losses is perfectly normal. I know a lot of casuals don't think so. Even their favorite fighter, Mike Tyson, had a few losses. Ali, Joe Lewis, the whole gamut of it. The only one
Holyfield.
who had
Yeah,
who
so
had that,
many. Mm-hmm.
the only one who had that distinction was Marciano, and it's like, okay, kudos, but that's not a thing in the heavyweight division. But saying that to
Absolutely.
say, even though he's had several losses, we've seen AJ elevate his game. We've seen him change up his game. And I know when he did that, I started to appreciate it because it's like, okay, so you lost once. You've learned from that. And I remember this was the Andy Ruiz fight. Okay, you lost once. What are you gonna do to change up your game in the second fight? And we saw that. So if it's one thing we've seen from AJ, it's constant progression in his game. And like I said, if they do fight, if they do fight, I personally feel like it might be a draw. You know how we know how much of a mega fight that will be, and, we all know they probably think like, there's more money if we do a draw for the first fight and then have them do a second fight or a sequel. But all the politics aside, um, I would want AJ to win.
Me too. And one more thing I left out, as I think it would be another key factor for AJ in that fight, is going to the body of Tyson Fury. Really, no one has been a consistent person that he's ever fought that stuck to his body. Wilder tried it in the third fight, but then he kept getting away from it, and then he went right back, resorted to the trying to land my right. But I think AJ will go to the body a whole lot and start chopping him down. I think once you go to his body, because you've never seen anybody go to his body enough to wear him down where you can see, okay, oh, this is taking effect on him. Because a few times that Wilder did land, if you go back and look at the third fight, you can see Fury kind of have a certain body language and look like, oh, I don't like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Started
Yeah.
slowing down slightly.
Yep, started slowing down little by little. And I pulled up the box rec for Wilder. His last KO was Robert Hernandez back in 2022. His last stoppage was a TKO when he fought that guy Tyrell Herndon in 2025.
Okay.
But
I gotta put that
between
fight.
that, he had the two. Yeah, so I mean, and then he had his recent fight with Derek Chisora, which to me he didn't look great in. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
fight, two guys, throwing bombs at each other pretty much, but nothing, nothing,
Yep.
nothing special. And one thing about AJ too is that I like about him is his punch placement. He's very careful how he places his punches. Um, and that's another thing that a lot of these guys do. They get sloppy. They just go anywhere or whatever. But AJ really places his punches, like here, here, here. He understands the true art of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Now the one thing I would, and I've wanted to see this from ever since the beginning of his career, and we kind of just touched on it. He always it inevitably fades around the sixth or seventh round. Like we talked about before, it's probably because those big ass muscles he has. I know he can't really help it. He's got his
yeah,
Nigerian heritage where a lot of those people are very lean out of that part of the world.
right.
But yeah,
Hmm.
and I remember I think it was after he lost to Andy Ruiz, he did a noticeable weight cut. He started becoming a little more light on the foot, started popping his jab a little more. But saying that to say that his musculature has been one of his downfalls in terms of his stamina. And I've always wanted him to learn pacing because of that.
I agree. And you make a good point. I'm happy you brought that up. I think now, when he did lose that weight for the Ruiz rematch, he came in some, well, I know over there they say stones, but some pounds lighter. I think they said he had, Klitschko had him lose that weight. Vlad was helping him and telling him how to lose the weight the right way. Now he's
Yep.
working with Usyk, training with Usyk. I think working with Usyk, he's probably gonna have him jumping rope, swimming, and anything that he can physically do, he's gonna make AJ do. And I think that's gonna really help his cardio. It's gonna help, tweak that area because Usyk is a
Hmm.
mastermind when it comes to stuff like that. So
Yep. So
kind of like the
I'm
Rocky and
very
Apollo
curious to see
Creed.
what kind of AJ we're gonna get in the next fight.
Yeah, man. And yeah, matter of fact, speaking of that, he does have a warm up fight. AJ will be fighting a guy that many of us didn't know much about, but he definitely has power. But I don't know anybody really significant on his resume. He's going to be fighting that guy Christian Pringa. Christian Pringa has like 20 knockouts in like 21 fights or something. So,
Yep.
we know this guy has a lot of knockouts, but he's never knocked out anybody on a world level. And I think the biggest name on his thing was let me see, the biggest name on Pringa's
So from what
box
I
rap. I
see,
thought it was
the biggest name he won against, I think his name was Joey. I'm gonna mess this up.
DeWaco.
Dewayco.
The DeWaco.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's the
So and
biggest
then on
name. Yeah.
top of that, like Christian Pringle, he's pretty well known in Jersey. So he's basically putting on for them. It's supposedly a pretty big name over there. You can see he's had more than a handful of fights. I think like half his fights have been in Philly. He's only won national titles. That was back
Mhm.
in I think 2023. So yeah, like to your point, he does have a lot of knockouts. The level of opposition, we could pick that apart all day if we wanted to. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Was like, still somewhat, unproven. A lot of your competition, like especially at this point. Well, actually, let me put it like this, because we were just talking about how Mexicans, they have a lot more fights on their record. Um, depending on where you're from in Europe or East Asia, you prioritize as few fights as possible before you get your first title shot. At this point, he's been fighting in the United States, and we all know United States, they like you to get about 30 or 35 in, before they start, big up in your name. So, in all fairness, he has been fighting in Jersey for over half of his career. So, I guess at this point, we can kind of excuse him for, the lack of, I guess, knowable competition. Um, I would hope he's fighting everyone that he puts in front of himself, and also challenging himself. Unless he's under that whole Arturo Gatti system of promotion where as long as you stay in Jersey, you can make money. But but yeah, other than that, in terms of this fight with AJ, just like with Tyson's fight against Magmudo, I feel like this fight is supposed to be just some cannon fodder for AJ, showing off the new skill set because, as we just said, he's been training with Usyk, so we're both looking forward to see what he's learned in those training camps, and then also just learning how to put all that together ever since we first started to see AJ kind of alter his game after the Ruiz loss. So like I said, looking forward to see.
Okay, okay. Um, well, we got a couple more subjects. I ain't gonna hold you too much longer. So let's carry it over real quick to Errol Spence comeback fight versus Tim Zoo. I'm an Errol Spence fan for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh. My feelings were hurt when he lost the Bud.
yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah. So what do you think about that, man? You think even with 3 years pretty much being out the ring, off I mean I ain't gonna say off the couch in the sense that he hasn't fought, but he's probably still been working out or whatever, but he hasn't had an actual fight. So what do you feel about that?
Yeah.
You think he still can get it on?
I still think it's gonna be a good. I think it's gonna be a good fight. I'm a little nervous for Errol Spence. I remember after he started fighting after the car accident, I was a little nervous. Now I'm just nervous for other reasons. I know he's basically been, kind of put on and taken off the shelf over the past few years. Maybe he was supposed to have that fight with Pandora, um, like a long time ago, and then that fell through for whatever reason. Um, and then it seems like it's always okay. So it seems like you're supposed to fight somebody, falls through, supposed to fight somebody again, falls through. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that's an issue with his camp or his promotional team, but I really hope that they would get that together. Or if it's not his fault, chalk it up to the boxing gods. Maybe that's God's way of saying maybe you need to sit down, sir. But I'm saying that to say I'm nervous because he's been out of the ring for so long. Ring rust does exist, and no matter how many people, no matter how much people make it seem like it's not. Tim Tszyu, while he's not necessarily your premier fighter, he is still a fighter that should be respected. Obviously Tim Tszyu coming in with his father's name, so he tries to live up to that expectation. While he hasn't been able to fully live up to his father's expectations, he's still a really good, solid fighter, and I feel like this is a really good fight for Errol to come back to, something to showcase his skill. In terms of, honestly, we don't know anything about Errol aside from what we saw when he was fighting Bud. So, and in my personal opinion, Bud made him look terrible in that fight. So we don't know. Honestly, even since before the Bud fight, we really don't know what to expect from Errol Spence. We don't know how he's going to attack. When he was fighting Bud basically took every good thing away from him, so he couldn't. We didn't see Errol Spence employ anything really. But in terms of the kind of style that we know Aerospace employs, it's very come forward, bullish, land to the body as much as possible, try to set you up for some shots up top. Whereas Tim Tszyu, and like I said, we've all seen from Tim Tszyu, he's not necessarily his father, um, but still a good fighter. But he's very, very hittable. Um, you know, uh, it doesn't seem like he has that next gear that a lot of the elite fighters have had. Um, and that's really no shame to him. Next gear in terms of being able to elevate his game once he's met with a challenge. It seems like whenever he's met with that challenge in the ring, like that same challenge is there for him for the rest of the entire night. He doesn't really adjust well. So whereas Errol Spence, we just know with the way he employs his game, used while maintaining a lot of inside pressure. He does a lot of framing, try to frame his shots. Try to get his little shoulder up on you so he can hit you to the body. So he does a lot of that. If anything, it's going to be a very long night for Tim Tszyu. I just hope Tim doesn't get his overblown broken. So
Yeah, and I think with Tim Zoo, he's kind of like, in a sense, slightly better version uh, than Cambosis, but they're kind of the type of guys where I do give them credit, and I don't think people credit this. They will fight anybody. These guys be fighting some names, but they come
hmm
up short in the big fights, obviously. But they're willing to roll the
yeah.
dice and fight these guys. So here he is again trying to fight somebody like Spence. Um, so I'll give them that, but I just think that they're the type of guys where they kind of, their ceiling pretty much. It only goes so high, but you know,
hmm
kudos to him. For wanting to fight somebody like Spence, and he does have the advantage of fighting in his backyard in Australia. Um,
hmm
but Spence has been in the backyard, like Cam J has said, and I thought about it is when he fought Kell Brook over in UK. They had a big moment, Earl Spence. So
hmm
this could be another big moment for him to go on somebody else's turf or do like how Devin Haney did when he fought Cambosis and went over to Australia twice to and did him in on his own backyard. So
hmm Yep.
we'll see, man. I'm rooting for Arrow for sure. Definitely root for Arrow. So let me
So
know y'all
so
predictions in the chat. What y'all think about the Errol Spence versus Tim Zoo. Um, Now, because, like I said, we're going to be ending this soon, I do at least want to talk about a few of the ladies real quick before we end this segment. So, what do you feel? The last performance of Alicia Bumgarner, or her recent win over Boomy Rasheen, she boxed beautifully. She established her jab, things like that. Um, do you think that maybe Alicia may fight Amanda Serrano next, or maybe even Katie Taylor to try to grab Katie Taylor before she retires? Because I don't think Katie Taylor is going to be
so
here a lot longer.
So to answer that question, I do not. I mean, the fight with Katie Taylor is possible. I just don't think that at this point in Katie Taylor's career, she's had a storied career, and as we've seen with people who are storied fighters and on their last couple of fights, They try to take a couple of easy ones. Um, and this is just no shade to Taylor, but I think she's at the point where she just wants to she wants to pick a good hurrah fight, and then just ride off into the sunset. I don't think she wants to sit there and fight Alicia Baumgartner for 30 minutes. That being said,
Right.
so I mean Baumgartner, she's unified at 130. And Serrano, she's currently defending at 126. So the weight gap isn't that isn't too much of a roadblock. Um,
Right.
I mean, so like I said, like a catch weight is more realistic. In terms of like the emotional side, both of them are under the MVP umbrella. Um, and I think isn't she like one of the what do you, the she's called the flagship something like a flagship fighter. Baumgartner, she says she wants to run in New York. So like promotionally, in terms of timing, whether this fight makes sense, I think it makes the most sense to fight Serrano over Taylor. Like I said, Taylor, she wants to go right off into the sunset. I don't think she wants to go deal with Alicia Baumgartner for 30 minutes. I really don't. But Amanda Serrano, she does seem like a more game opponent. If I could hazard a guess to say late 2026, late this year, that's what I think would be a good time to pick up that fight because I know Serrano, she has a fight coming up later this month on May 30th. So after she gets some rest and recovery from that fight, um, you know, in a more aggressive timeline, after she gets some rest and relaxation from her next fight on May 30th, she can, take a couple of months off and then get into another training camp, and then maybe we could see a fight for them later this year. But in terms of them actually wanting to do it, we don't know. It's all really up to whoever, whatever promotional company.
Sure, man. And the thing about it, this is something me and Cam J had talked about. It is something that I was kind of processing and thinking about. So with that going on there, the potential that she could fight Amanda Serrano with a small chance the Katie Taylor fight could manifest, but probably won't. But then I think she could maybe fight the winner of the rematch with Holly Holm and Stephanie Hahn. Stephanie Hahn is the law enforcement one that fought and beat Holly Holm last time. So they're going to rematch. But meanwhile, 5 pounds above them at 135, we got Daniel Dubois' sister, Carolyn Dubois. And I rock with
Hmm.
Carolyn, I ain't gonna lie.
Yep.
But I rock with
Yep.
Alicia too, because I'm from Ohio. So she's from Ohio. So it's like maybe Carolyn Dubois fights Elif Turhan, the Turkish fighter. And
Hmm.
now, skill wise, I think Carolyn's a lot better than Elif Turhan if you look up Elif Turhan. But
Hmm.
Elif does
Hmm.
have that
Hmm.
type of power. But to me, she's just everywhere with it. She has the power, but she's just kind of like, winging shots. So
Yep.
I think though, if Carolyn could fight her and whoever else is at 135 in that division, clear it out, get all the straps there. Meanwhile, Alicia keep winning at 130. Eventually, Alicia is going to need to come up to 135 and fight Carolyn because she
Yep.
knows that's a fight everybody wants. She ain't like she don't know this. She's not ignorant to it. She knows this because she responds to
Yep.
it. Alicia's done responded to it a few times.
Yep. And then to go back to your earlier question about what I think about her win over Bumi Rishin. I really think that was a very good performance. At first, I was kind of on the fence of who won this fight until I went back and watched it again. And basically, I saw Alicia. She was slipping a lot of shots. She was blocking a lot of shots. She was, using her footwork to get out the way. She was able to duck under a lot of punches that Shin was throwing. But if there's any questions that anybody had about Alicia's toughness, whether she could stay in pocket, or whether she could take a punch, I feel like all those questions have been answered. I feel like just so, truth be told, the reason why in the first fight I was on the fence of wondering who won is because of Shin's like sheer pace. Like the pace was absolutely insane. Like she just didn't stop. She didn't go away. So Alicia literally had nowhere to run. I think when I was watching that fight, you see like in the first couple of rounds, like Alicia, she was establishing herself well. She had a good jab. She was landing a couple of good shots to Shin. And then during the middle rounds, it seems like yeah, like Shin is like here to stay. She's not going anywhere. You throw some of your best work at her, and she just didn't go away. She kept going and going. And it just but once you slow that fight down, you realize that even though it did seem like Shin was getting some good work off, Alicia was also staying in the pocket, getting her work off as well. She was landing the cleaner counter punches, and just the cleaner shots
Yep,
overall. Um, which
absolutely.
I would love to say, by the way, I love Alicia's style. Um, it kind of gives me shades of Bud Crawford. I know that might be a little taboo for some people to hear, but the way she fights, the way she's defensively responsible while being offensively dangerous at the same time. I feel like her style mimics the most of Bud Crawford's out of all the women that I've seen. I know, and then as in terms of mimicking that, mentality to fighting, I would say Clarissa Shields is directly underneath that. I'm not saying that if Clarissa and Alicia fought that Alicia would win, but I'm just saying in terms of what I've seen, that intelligence and that IQ, um, Alicia's is the closest to Bud's in my opinion.
That's what's up, man. Let me read these chats
And you
right
also
before we
brought
go
up
over there.
Holly Holm. How did
Yeah.
you feel about Holly Holmes? How did you feel about Holly Holmes' first fight with Stephanie Hand?
From what I can remember, I need to go. I know I watched it. I have to go watch it back. Um, but from what I remember, it seemed like Stephanie Hahn was the more precise puncher, and she was the busier fighter. Like she set the pace or whatever,
Hmm.
and once she set her rhythm and pace, she just kind of kept it at that. Like she didn't go like crazy, but she kind of kept it just like even kill or whatever. And Stephanie, I mean not Stephanie, but Holly Holm had no answer. She had no adjustment for it, and that's a big part of boxing is making adjustments. At some point, if you can't make those adjustments,
Yeah.
you're going to lose because what you're doing right now ain't working, and you're still doing it over again. So you have to make some type of adjustments. So hopefully she'll go back and
Yeah,
watch the film and realize where she came up short to make it
yeah. I
a
remember
more
when I was
exciting
watching.
fight, even if she.
Yeah, I remember when I was watching that fight. I mean, Holly Holm, she was doing good, but I think it was the third round where Stephanie Hand, she was like, "I know what you're doing," and she caught on to Holly Holm. And then from there, it seems like it was just like smooth sailing for Stephanie Hand from that point on. I know Holly Holm. She kept on going to the wishing well one too many times with that straight left hand. Like, I know that's her money shot. And then, for her to not be a knockout puncher, for her to continuously throw it out like it's gonna be some, game changer, I feel like was a little short sighted on Holly Holmes' part. Stephanie Hand, she was able to, for the most part, she was able to stay out the way of the left hand. There was a few times, especially a little closer to the stoppage in some of the mid rounds where Holly Holm did get that left off the timer too. But like I said, she, with her not even being a counter, not with her not being a knockout puncher like that, and and not really bringing anything else behind that left hand, I feel like she was just throwing it out there, seeing what lands. I feel like Stephanie Hand, she employed a really good game plan against Holly Holm. And to your point, I really hope that Holly Holm goes to sit down, watch footage, and figure out, okay, what can I do to get better? Because even before the stoppage, of the accidental headbutt. Even before that, Stephanie was winning that, hand and foot. So
Oh yeah, man, for sure, man. Um, so I'm gonna read these comments. Rich Talmadge, you said Fury is making 3 different stories. When this one's over, Fury will try with jabs and distance fighting. AJ knows his tactics. Once that happens, AJ timing his shots, picking when to trade and walking. Fury down, but once AJ lands big, Fury will then be very defensive minded after that. And I definitely agree. Because he was like that with Ngannou. Once he saw he got knocked down and he started getting on his bicycle and started being more like stick and move, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think he's going to respect the type of power that AJ has. And he's going to actually see just how strong AJ really is when they do fight.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I hope it happens this year. They can close out this year with that one. That'll make me happy. Even though it kind of aged, you know, like you said, like the Kell Brook Amir Khan happened late. Mike Tyson versus
Hmm.
Holyfield. You know, they kept dropping the ball for that to eventually happen. So Mayweather Pac, you know, some legendary fights happen late, but hey, I guess I'll say rather late than never. I'll take it. Because
Yep.
I look at it like it's
Even
dead even. Like I tell people, like, yeah, you got AJ who's been knocked out by Dubois recently. AJ who got stopped the first time by Ruiz. You got Tyson Fury who's never been knocked out, but he's been dropped 4 times by one guy, uh,
hmm
Wilder, in 2 different fights, the first and third fight. And then he was dropped early in his career by Pajovic, somebody nobody really even knows.
Yep.
He was dropped by Ngannou, and then he was dropped by Steve Cunningham. Steve Cunningham, the cruiserweight. So Steve Cunningham dropped
hmm
Fury. So Fury's been dropped about 8 times, and AJ's been dropped 8 times as well. So they're pretty much even as far as being on the canvas. So I think it's a good fight because they both have some level of vulnerability where they can be hurt. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep. All right. So I got a question for you before we end. Give me your top three pound
uh,
for pound.
my top 3 pound for pound would be Bud Crawford. No particular order though. Bud Crawford.
Active boxer.
Oh, active. Okay. Um, I wonder what would you say? You hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. Uh, pound for pound. Hmm. That's something I have to sit and think on really, really good. Like who I really, really. Uh, does Usyk count?
Well, yep.
Usyk. Yes, I'll have Usyk. Um, although he's not a fan favorite like amongst the casuals, but as a purist that I am, and sometimes even I get like, man, I wish you would do a little bit more. Shakur Stevenson, even though
Okay. Okay.
I'm more of a fan of Keyshawn Davis because he has that killer instinct, and I wish that
hmm
Shakur just had that little bit, that little switch like that. Um,
Yep.
but I mean, as far as a purist and a boxer, I gotta give it to Shakur because he is, he still, you know what I mean, he gets it done.
Yep.
Uh, and my third one, um, oh man,
Y'all. So no in a way.
I was about to say that. It's like on the tip of my tongue, like probably anyway. Yeah, yeah, that was
Yeah.
on the tip of my tongue.
I personally. personally, that would be my three. Number one for me. So I'll do men's and women's. Men's, I got Usyk number one. It's kind of self-explanatory. And I'm very torn between. I'm torn between for number two between Inoue and Shakur Stevenson. Like you said, I like Shakur Stevenson's style. I know how a lot of people may say that his style is boring, but they should really just don't know what they're looking at. And I don't really get into you know those debates about boring styles anyway, especially as it relates to Shakur Stevenson, because he's shown us he can stand in the pocket and you're still not going to hit him. So whether he uses his footwork to get out the way or stands right in front of you, the result is going to be the same anyway. Um, Naoya anyway, for obvious reasons. He's a multi division champion. He's also and then he had a really good fight against Junto Nakatani. His body of work is insane. His counter punching, his sharpness, his technique, his footwork, his head movement, all those things are just, what are you going to do against that? For as much of a good performance as Junto Nakatani put on against Inoue, it still just wasn't enough. And Junto Nakatani, like I said, like that was our version of Hagler Hearns. So you didn't really get any higher than that in the pinnacle of like mega fights. So if we put it to that world stage, I think I might have to put Inoue as number two, Shakur as number three, only because Shakur he still doesn't quite have the level of depth in his resume. It's not saying that he's not any good, but it's kind of the exact same curse that Boots is under. Like, everybody thinks you're really good, but the same thing with Bud at some
Mm-hmm.
point. Like everybody thinks you're really good, but you haven't fought the who's yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta.
So women's division, I'll do Clarissa Shields number one, Alicia Baumgartner number two. I don't know if I want to do. I want to say Katie Taylor, number three, just out of respect. I know she's, going to be on her way out soon, but I'll do Katie
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, number three.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That definitely sounds about right there. Clarissa, AB, and Lisa Bogwarner, and Kate Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rich Talmadge said Usyk, David Benavides, and Boots is his. And I was gonna say Boots. That's why I just kept standing there. I'm like, I'm not gonna say Boots, but I just felt like after Xander, and then maybe after one or two more fights after Xander, once he does a little bit more. I mean, I know the potential's definitely there. I could definitely see the writing on the wall. It's just like people say, you have to actually go out there and do it. I could say all day
Right.
that I see that in you, but you have to go out there and do it. So I know Boots got it.
Right. That's really ultimately what it is. Like we all like everybody who's a fan of Boots, but still says that his record is still lacking that oomph. All we want to see is just him fight, or him be able to get the fights that he wants, so we can finally be like, "See, I told you, he's supposed to be up here for a reason." That's all I'm waiting on.
Yeah, I mean, because the toughest fight for 154 for Boots is if it happens, it's just gonna be the awkwardness and the tallness of Sebastian Fendor, his range. But if he can somehow get around that and beat this guy, then I'm gonna say nobody's gonna beat Boots because that's gonna be his toughest challenge. Just that the physical attributes he has. He just has that. He's like Dawson in Street Fighter.
Yeah, man.
Juba
Like
Flame.
I have my own personal feelings about Fundora being at 154, but it's only because I don't know, I'm kind of looking at it like as a video game aspect. It's like like if you're playing a sports game like Madden, 2K, Boxing Undisputed, Fight Night, it's like of course you would correct the player with the tallest height, the longest reach. And I know
Yeah,
and it's
right.
unfortunate for
Yeah.
it's unfortunate for Fundor, but like he still gets a lot of flack for that. It's like, bro, just move up and wait. Like you're literally a giant in the land of people who are like what, no more than 5'8" on average. So I can understand him getting that criticism. It's really nothing he can do unless he really, until he starts to really grow into his man body. And then, of course, I would assume that he's going to move up just based on his physical frame. I think it would, just add that extra layer of, legitimacy to Fundura's resume and his career. Because I know, I, you can't tell me that this guy doesn't see the comments. It's like, all right, you're 6'5", okay, like let's calm down. But to your point, I
Yeah,
think Boots does have his work cut out for him if that fight ever gets made. His work would definitely be cut out for him. But yet, and still, elite fighters always know how to get it done. So it's just a matter of
hmm
who will be the more elite. Is it going to be Fandor or is it going to be Boots? And and
right.
we can all sit here and talk about physical attributes all day long, but we've always seen the most elite fighters figure it out.
Fact, man. Well said. Yeah, I mean, I think eventually that's gonna be within his next three fights. I think Fundora is gonna fight his way to him. So, and I think he's gonna be
Yep.
ready for it. I mean, Boots, he sounds very confident. He has the type of physical special attributes that athleticism plays a huge part. His athleticism would get him
Mhm.
out of certain situations that other people fall victim in them certain, circumstances that he won't. So I think his athleticism is going to give Fundora issues once they do eventually
Yep.
step inside that ring.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a good segment, man. Like I said, I appreciate you coming through. We can do another round in the future again. And as more fights develop throughout these next couple weeks to the next couple months, man, we'll get it in again. I'll reach out to you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you for having me on.
Oh yeah, man. And shout outs to my cousin. I see you said you're on the road, Sweet Jones. Be safe out there, cousin. And everyone, I'm going to conclude this segment of Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. I will be right back in a few hours at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another guest. And the reason why I had two shows today is because I'm so consumed throughout the work week sometimes, or maybe on a Saturday I can't do something. Then I'm gonna say, okay, let me double up today, you know. And who better to bring it in? Me and my guy Mike, and then later on we're gonna have Sean on here, aka the Church. So, all right, my man, you have a blessed one, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'll see you later, man.
Okay, man. All right, y'all. Thanks. Make sure you hit on and watch this back. Please hit thumbs up. Please share this on your social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever. Just share it. And I will see you all at 6 p.m. with the church. The church, Sean, he will be on here going live. So I will see you on the next round. Peace.